"Please be quick," she pleaded. The rancher looked up and locked eyes with the devil. The sun was low in the sky, burning red across the dusty plains of Tryon 5, a frontier world far from the safety of the core. The wind whipped through the tall, brittle grasses, carrying the scent of iron and sand. Mara stood at the edge of the small ranch she called home, her hands trembling as she clutched the worn handle of her father's old blaster. Her heart pounded. Somewhere beyond the ridge she could hear it, the faint hum of engines, low and threatening, growing louder with every passing second. She had seen raiders before. She had seen wild beasts tear apart entire herds. But this felt different, cold, unnatural. Her father had warned her about strangers, about dangers no one could predict. And yet now, faced with the approaching threat, she had no choice but to plead. "Please be quick," she whispered, voice breaking. From the horizon, a figure emerged. At first, she thought it was one of the raiders, but as he drew closer, she realized he was unlike anyone she had ever seen. Tall, lean, and moving with a calm precision, he seemed almost unreal against the harsh, glowing sunset. His long coat trailed behind him, catching the wind like a shadow in motion. His eyes, sharp, cold, and piercing, locked onto hers, and for a moment she felt as if he could see through her very soul. The villagers had called him the devil of the wastes. Mara had thought it was a story, a way to scare children and travelers into obeying local rules. But now, standing in front of her, she wasn't so sure. The rancher, her father Tom, emerged from the barn behind her, his boots crunching on dry soil. His weathered face, lined from years of sun and wind, betrayed no fear, only determination. He squinted at the stranger, one hand resting on the blaster at his hip. "You're not from here," Tom said, voice steady. "Who are you?" The stranger tilted his head slightly, a faint smile curling on his lips. "Some call me the devil," he replied, his voice low, smooth, and dangerous. "Others call me necessary." Mara swallowed hard. "We don't have time for riddles," she said. "They're coming, they'll—" "I know," the stranger interrupted, cutting her off before she could finish. His eyes never wavered from Tom's. "And you're asking me to be quick. You're asking for help. I can give it, but it comes with a price." Tom's grip on his blaster tightened. "We don't make deals with devils." The stranger's smile widened slightly. "Oh, you will, or you'll die." Mara stepped forward, desperation in her eyes. "Please just help us. We'll figure the rest out later." The stranger studied her, then glanced at the horizon where a faint shimmer of heat rose above the land. His expression darkened. "You've little time. Follow me. If you hesitate, it will be too late." Without waiting for permission, he moved forward, long strides carrying him with unnatural ease across the uneven ground. Mara hesitated only a moment before rushing to keep up, Tom close behind. The ranch, their home, seemed suddenly fragile and small against the vast, hostile land. As they walked, Mara noticed small details, the way the stranger's eyes missed nothing, scanning the landscape with an almost mechanical precision. He paused occasionally, listening to sounds she couldn't hear, sensing movements she couldn't detect. She felt a shiver run down her spine. "Who are you really?" she asked quietly. The stranger glanced at her but said nothing. Instead, he pointed ahead. Across the ridge, a faint vibration shivered through the ground. Dust rose and the sun glinted off metal. Mara's heart skipped a beat. It was them, the approaching threat. The machines were bigger than anything she had imagined, bristling with spikes and weapons, moving with terrifying coordination. Tom cursed under his breath. "Raiders," he muttered. "No, those aren't human. They've got tech from the core worlds, advanced like nothing we've ever faced." The stranger's eyes narrowed. "Not human," he said, "and very nearly unstoppable unless we act now." They climbed the ridge, reaching a small plateau that overlooked the valley below. Mara's hands shook as she pointed to the machines. "We can't fight them. We're not ready." "You will be," the stranger said. "If you trust me, you'll survive. If not," his gaze darkened, almost a warning, "everything dies." Tom studied him for a long moment, weighing the risk. He could feel the fear in his chest, but also the spark of hope. This was unusual, yes, and dangerous, but he knew one thing. In the face of this kind of enemy, hesitation was worse than risk. "All right," Tom said finally. "We'll follow. But any trick, any betrayal, and you'll regret it." The stranger inclined his head almost approvingly. "Fair enough. But know this, the universe has no mercy, only action or death." Mara shivered. She felt the truth of his words deep in her bones. The machines below advanced steadily, their movements unnervingly precise. She glanced at her father. "Do you really think we can stop them?" Tom didn't answer at first. He checked his blaster, loading the last round with practiced hands. Then he looked at Mara and said, "I don't know, but we're going to try. And we're going to fight like humans always fight, against the odds, because we have to." The stranger nodded slightly. "Good, you've got spirit. That will matter more than you know." Together, the three of them descended the ridge. The wind carried the metallic roar of the machines closer, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Mara's mind raced with fear and anticipation, but she forced herself to focus. She had seen her father survive storms, beasts, and worse. If they could combine human ingenuity with whatever the devil could do, maybe, just maybe, they stood a chance. As they approached the valley, the stranger paused and raised a hand. The ground trembled. Mara felt a strange vibration in her chest, almost as if the earth itself were listening. Then the stranger crouched, placing his hand on the soil. Light shimmered beneath his fingers, invisible to the human eye, but somehow she knew it was working, preparing traps or scanning the enemy, or both. "Do something," she whispered. "Please." The stranger looked at her. "I told you I can only help. You must act, think, and fight. That is your part. Do you understand?" Mara nodded. Her fear was still there, but now it was mingled with resolve. She knew humans could endure anything, and she was going to prove it, starting now. The machines reached the bottom of the valley. Mara and her father, guided by the stranger, moved quickly, setting up defenses with whatever scraps they had. Old turrets, spikes, and traps. The stranger's hands moved almost too fast to see, manipulating energy fields, leaving patterns in the dust that glowed faintly, alien and powerful. Time passed in tense, frantic preparation. Mara's thoughts were scattered, but one thing was clear. Survival depended on every move, every decision. She glanced at her father. "We can do this," she said quietly. Tom gave her a brief, weary smile. "We have to." From the ridge above, the stranger watched, silent and unreadable. His eyes scanned the valley, taking in the human defenses and the approaching threat. Then he murmured something under his breath, a promise or a warning, she couldn't tell. And then the first machine appeared over the ridge. It was massive, armored, and moving with terrifying purpose. Its sensors glowed red, locking onto the humans below. Mara gritted her teeth, gripping her blaster. Her father took his position, voice steady, shouting instructions to the few ranch hands who had joined them. The devil, if that was truly what he was, stepped forward, shoulders straight, eyes fixed on the enemy. Mara had never seen such confidence, such calm in the face of certain death. For a moment she felt fear and awe intertwine. The stranger was otherworldly, yes, but he wasn't fighting alone. He was fighting with humans. And in that moment, Mara realized something profound. Humanity's greatest strength was not in technology or strength alone, but in courage, ingenuity, and the will to survive against impossible odds. The first shot rang out, echoing across the valley, and the battle began. The first machine fell with a thunderous crash, sparks flying from its armor. Mara's ears rang from the impact and dust filled the air. She coughed, wiping sweat and dirt from her brow. Her hands shook as she reloaded her blaster, the adrenaline keeping her heart pounding. "Keep moving," Tom shouted, his voice steady over the chaos. "Don't give them a chance to aim." The stranger, the one the villagers whispered about as the devil, moved like a shadow through the valley. He didn't just fight. He seemed to anticipate the machine's every movement, his long coat swirling as he dodged and struck with precision that was almost impossible to follow. Mara watched him, part awe, part fear. She had never seen someone so confident in battle, and yet he did not fight for himself. His eyes were fixed on protecting them. "Stay behind me," he commanded suddenly, turning his attention toward Mara. "They're fast, smarter than you think." Mara didn't hesitate. She ducked behind him, her small body pressed to his back. He moved like water, gliding around the first fallen machine as if it weren't even there. Sparks flew from the wreckage, and Mara realized he had done something, some kind of energy field, faint but powerful, that shielded them from debris and stray fire. "Human ingenuity," he said, almost to himself. "It's crude but effective." Mara blinked. She didn't understand what he meant, but she felt a surge of pride. Even with their limited weapons and traps, they were surviving. The remaining machines advanced. They were huge, taller than two humans stacked, armored with strange alloys that reflected the sun like mirrors. Their movements were unnatural, almost mechanical. Each step shook the earth, rattling the valley. The machine's sensors glowed red, scanning, hunting. Tom turned to Mara. "Aim for the joints," he shouted. "Where the armor meets, that's where they're weak." Mara nodded, adjusting her blaster sights. She took a deep breath, remembering every lesson her father had drilled into her. Her hands stopped shaking, her mind focused. One shot, two shots, then three. Sparks flew where her rounds hit the machine's weak points. One staggered, slowed, and collapsed with a screeching crash. "Good," Tom yelled. "Keep it up." The stranger moved among them, taking down machines with precision no human could match. But he didn't work alone. He guided the humans, shouting directions, warning of danger, coordinating attacks. It was strange, Mara thought, to see the devil working for humans. Yet somehow, it made sense. He was a force of nature, yes, but even he recognized the value of human courage and planning. Hours seemed to pass in minutes. The valley echoed with explosions, blaster fire, and the terrifying hum of the machine's engines. Mara felt exhaustion creeping in, but she pushed it down. She had no choice. She had to survive for her father, for the ranch, and for the people depending on them. At one point, a massive machine broke through a barricade and charged directly at them. Mara froze, heart racing. Tom shouted, "Move!" The stranger stepped forward, unafraid. His hands glowed faintly with energy, strange patterns forming in the air before him. With a sudden, sharp motion, he struck the ground. A shockwave rippled outward, sending the charging machine stumbling and crashing to the ground. Dust and debris filled the air. Mara blinked. How did you do that?" The stranger looked at her, expression unreadable. "I prepare, I control, you adapt. Humans do not rely on powers, you rely on thought, courage, and instinct. That is why you survive." Mara nodded slowly. She realized he was teaching them in his own strange way. He wasn't just fighting for them, he was showing them how to fight. The battle raged on. The humans, under the devil's guidance, began to coordinate more effectively. They worked together to set traps, lure machines into ambushes, and target weak points. Each success gave them hope. Each failure taught them a lesson. And through it all, Mara felt a growing fire inside her, a belief in humanity's ability to endure, to overcome. "Tom," Mara called suddenly, "the ridge, we can use the slope to our advantage. If we funnel them there, the traps will work better." Tom looked at her, surprised. "That's brilliant, Mara. Let's do it." With the devil's guidance, they repositioned quickly. Mara's quick thinking made a difference. The humans began to gain the upper hand, using not just weapons but brains. It was a harsh lesson. In this universe, strength alone was not enough. Strategy mattered. Ingenuity mattered. Humanity mattered. The machines adapted, sensing the humans' tactics. They began to move faster, more aggressively, trying to surround the valley. Mara's heart pounded as she ducked behind debris, firing at their weak points. Her father shouted instructions, but even he seemed impressed by her growing skill. She had been trained for survival, yes, but this was real. Life and death. The stakes had never been higher. The stranger observed silently, stepping in only when necessary. His calmness contrasted sharply with the chaos. Mara realized something important. He had seen countless battles, countless worlds, and yet he chose to fight alongside humans here. Why? Perhaps because he understood what they were capable of. Perhaps because he respected their courage. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in blood red and orange, the humans and the devil executed their final plan. Mara led a team to lure the remaining machines into a narrow canyon. The others, under Tom's command, prepared the traps, explosives, spikes, and crude energy nets the devil had helped enhance. The machines entered the canyon, their sensors glowing as they scanned for threats. Mara's pulse raced. One wrong move, one misstep, and they could all be crushed. She gripped her blaster tightly, waiting for the signal. The devil stepped forward, his eyes glowing faintly. "Now," he commanded. Explosives detonated, collapsing the canyon walls in a controlled way. The machines were trapped, slowed, and vulnerable. The humans fired, aiming at joints and weak points, while the devil struck with precise energy blasts that dismantled armor and disrupted their circuits. The plan worked perfectly. One by one, the machines fell, sparks flying, engines screeching. Mara couldn't believe it. They had done it. They had survived. Tom clapped her on the shoulder, smiling for the first time since the battle began. "You did well, Mara, all of you. We survived because we worked together, because we thought, because we fought, like humans always do." The stranger watched silently, expression unreadable. Then he spoke, almost softly. "Impressive. You may yet prove that humanity is more than fragile, more than weak. You adapt. You endure, you fight even against impossible odds." Mara looked at him, awe and respect in her eyes. "Thank you," she said simply. "We couldn't have done it without you." The stranger shook his head. "Do not thank me, you did this. I only guided, remember that. Humans survive because you fight, because you think, because you refuse to give up. That is your power." As darkness fell across the valley, the survivors regrouped. The ranch was damaged, but they had survived. Mara looked at the horizon, the stars beginning to appear in the sky. She felt exhausted, but also alive. For the first time, she truly understood the words her father had always told her. Humanity's greatest strength is not technology, not weapons, not luck, but courage, determination, and unity. The devil turned to leave, cloak flowing in the night wind. Mara felt a pang of sadness. He had been strange, frightening, and powerful, but he had shown them the value of hope, of skill, of human spirit. "Wait," she called. He paused, glancing back. "Yes. Will you help us again if we need you?" He tilted his head, faintly amused. "Perhaps. But know this, the next time you must be ready. No guidance, no miracles, only humans, only your strength, only your spirit." With that, he vanished into the darkness, leaving the ranchers and villagers to rebuild and recover. Mara looked at her father, feeling both fear and determination. The universe was harsh, full of dangers beyond imagining, but now she knew something important. Humans could survive. Humans could fight. Humans could endure. And Mara, for the first time, believed in the strength of her own people. The valley was quiet now, but the silence carried a heavy weight. Mara stood on the ridge, staring down at the wreckage of the machines they had defeated. Smoke curled from broken circuits and smoldering metal. The air still smelled of ozone and burned oil. She wiped dirt and sweat from her forehead, trying to steady her breathing. "Too quiet," her father Tom muttered. He leaned on his blaster, eyes scanning the horizon. "They'll come back, and next time they'll bring more." Mara nodded, feeling the same unease. The first attack had been terrifying, but the real enemy had not yet shown its full strength, and she knew it. Humans could survive many things, yes, but this was something different, something that would test every skill they had. The stranger, the devil, stood a few meters away, arms crossed, gaze fixed on the distant mountains. He didn't move like a normal human. His posture was fluid, precise, and calculated. Mara noticed that even in rest, he seemed alert to everything around him, as if he were connected to the very air. "We can't wait here," he said finally, his voice low, calm, but carrying authority. "They'll repair, regroup, and return stronger. If we want to survive, we need to find their base and strike first." Tom frowned. "Their base? How do you know where it is?" The devil's eyes narrowed. "I sense patterns, movements, energy emissions, echoes of their communications. Their machines are predictable once you understand their design. They have a central command station. Destroy that, and the rest will falter." Mara swallowed. The thought of hunting down the enemy's stronghold made her stomach tighten, but fear was no longer her only feeling. She felt determination. Humans might be outmatched in strength or technology, but they had something the machines didn't: creativity, courage, and the ability to think unpredictably. Tom nodded slowly. "All right, we follow your lead, but remember, this is still our land. You help or you stay out of our way." The stranger inclined his head slightly. "Fair, but know this: hesitation will cost lives, and the longer we wait, the stronger they become." They set out at first light. Mara led the way, guiding small teams of ranchers who had recovered from the earlier attack. The valley stretched behind them, dotted with broken machines, scorched earth, and scorched hope. Ahead, the terrain grew rougher. Mountains rose sharply, jagged and dangerous, and the wind carried the faint hum of the approaching enemy forces. The devil moved silently, scanning the land, occasionally stopping to crouch and touch the ground. Mara noticed faint glows where his fingers pressed. "What are you doing?" she asked quietly. "Marking," he replied. "Not for you to see, for them, for the path. They will stumble where I choose." Mara shivered, uncertain if she admired him or feared him more. He was a force unlike any she had encountered, but she had learned that even a force like him could respect human determination. As they climbed the first ridge, the wind howled, carrying a strange, mechanical scent. Mara's instincts screamed at her. Something was near. She crouched behind a boulder, hand on her blaster. "They're scouts," the devil said without looking. "And they are clever, very clever, but humans can be clever too. You must anticipate what they anticipate." The humans and the devil set up a small trap. Using the terrain to their advantage, they created a false trail leading toward a narrow pass. Mara's hands were steady as she loaded her weapon, her mind sharp with strategy. The devil moved ahead, placing subtle energy markers in the dust. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Mara realized the markers were a silent instruction, teaching her how to read the land and anticipate the enemy's behavior. Hours passed. The scouts came, moving cautiously, trying to detect the humans. Mara held her breath as the first scout stepped onto the false trail. It triggered a simple but effective trap, a pitfall with jagged stakes, enhanced slightly by the devil's energy field. The scout fell, immobilized and defeated. "Good," the devil said softly. "Human ingenuity, simple, effective, and deadly." Mara smiled faintly. Each small victory built confidence. She realized they weren't just surviving, they were learning, adapting, becoming stronger. Humans thrived under pressure, and this was the proof. But the real challenge lay ahead. The scouts were only the first line. The devil guided them toward the main base, a fortress of metal and machines carved into the side of a mountain. It was heavily guarded, nearly impossible to infiltrate without a plan. Mara's heart raced at the sight. "How do we even get in?" Tom asked, voice low. The devil studied the base, eyes narrowing. "Through their weaknesses, every fortress has one. Humans call it planning. Machines, no matter how advanced, follow logic, and logic can be predicted." Mara felt a thrill. This was a battle of minds, not just strength. Humans excelled at that. They thought, improvised, and acted unpredictably. They could survive where raw power alone might fail. The group spent the next hours preparing. Mara and the others set traps around the approach to the fortress. The devil showed them how to use energy markers to mislead the enemy, how to manipulate the terrain to their advantage, and how to coordinate attacks with precision timing. Each instruction was simple, yet effective. Each tactic relied on human effort guided by his knowledge. As night fell, the humans crouched in the shadows, waiting. Mara's pulse raced, but fear was tempered by determination. She had learned much already. Humans were strong not because of weapons, but because of courage, ingenuity, and unity. The enemy began to move. Larger machines, heavily armored and armed, patrolled the perimeter. Mara's team watched, ready. The devil's quiet instructions guided them, subtle gestures telling them when to strike, when to wait. The first wave of machines approached a trap. Mara held her breath as the pitfall sprung, energy nets snapping over the enemy, immobilizing some and disorienting others. Sparks flew, metal screeched, and chaos erupted among the enemy ranks. Mara fired at weak points, aiming carefully. One by one, machines fell, disrupted not by brute force alone but by strategy and timing. "Excellent," the devil murmured. "You understand. Humans survive because they adapt, because they think, because they fight together." Hours passed in tense silence and sudden bursts of combat. Mara felt exhaustion creeping in, but she pushed it aside. Each success fueled her confidence. She realized that humans were not fragile, not weak. They were resilient, resourceful, and willing to take risks that machines could not understand. Finally, they reached the outer walls of the fortress. Mara crouched behind a boulder, heart racing. Tom whispered instructions to the team, but Mara already knew what needed to be done. She glanced at the devil. His eyes were fixed on the base, calculating, precise. "This is it," he said softly. "Once inside, you must act as humans do best. Think, adapt, survive." Mara nodded. Fear was still there, yes, but it was joined by determination. Humans could face this. Humans could endure. And now, guided by the devil, they had a chance not just to survive, but to strike back. They moved forward carefully, using the terrain, shadows, and traps to their advantage. Mara's hands were steady as she disabled a security drone with a precise shot. Tom led a small team to create diversions, while Mara and another group prepared to breach the fortress walls. The fortress was vast, a tangle of metal and machines, but Mara noticed patterns, the movements of guards, the rhythm of patrols, the timing of surveillance. The devil had taught them to watch, to anticipate, to act. And for the first time, Mara felt truly confident. Humans had the tools, the minds, and the courage to challenge even this formidable enemy. They breached the walls using a combination of simple explosives and the devil's energy guidance. Mara's heart pounded as alarms blared, machines mobilized, and the enemy attempted to adapt. But the humans were ready. Every step had been planned, every trap carefully placed. The enemy faltered, confused by the unpredictable tactics. Mara led her team deeper into the fortress, following the devil's guidance. Each room, each corridor was dangerous, but the humans pressed on. They were not just surviving, they were taking the fight to the enemy. And with each victory, Mara's belief in humanity grew stronger. At the heart of the fortress, the enemy's command center awaited. Massive, heavily armored, and bristling with weapons, it seemed invincible. Mara took a deep breath. This was the final challenge. The humans had learned, adapted, and survived so far. Now they would prove that even in the face of overwhelming power, human courage, ingenuity, and determination could prevail. The devil looked at them, eyes piercing. "Once here, there is no turning back. Remember your strengths, remember your courage. And remember, humans survive because they never give up." Mara nodded, gripping her blaster tightly. The fortress loomed ahead, dark and threatening. But for the first time, she did not feel helpless. Humans had faced impossible odds before. They would face them again. And this time they would fight not just to survive, but to win. The heart of the fortress loomed ahead, dark and imposing, a mass of metal and circuits. Mara crouched behind a low wall, her blaster ready, her breath shallow but steady. Around her, the small team of ranchers moved carefully, following the devil's silent guidance. Every step was measured, every movement counted. One mistake, one miscalculation, and the enemy would overwhelm them. "Stay close," the devil whispered, his voice calm yet commanding. "We move as one. Humans survive by working together, remember that." Mara nodded. She had learned much since the attack in the valley. The machines were strong, yes, but they could be outthought. Strategy mattered. Observation mattered. Courage mattered most. The first corridor was narrow, lined with sensors and small turrets. Mara froze as a red light blinked, signaling detection. A turret activated, spinning to face them. "Now," the devil commanded. Tom and two ranchers threw themselves to the side, using small explosives to jam the turret. Sparks flew, smoke filled the air, and the turret ground to a halt. Mara fired a precise shot at the machinery's joint, disabling it completely. The team moved forward, hearts pounding, muscles tense. "Good," the devil said softly. "Quick thinking. That is why humans survive." They pressed on, deeper into the fortress. Machines roamed the halls, their red sensors glowing, engines humming with calculated precision. The humans and the devil moved like shadows, silent and deadly. Mara felt the thrill of the hunt, the fear, and the determination all mixing together. Suddenly, a massive mechanical guardian appeared at the end of the corridor, a towering machine, bristling with weapons, its glowing eyes fixed on them. Mara froze for a fraction of a second before the devil stepped forward. "Distract it," he said. "And remember, strike at its joints. The rest is weak." Tom and two ranchers threw themselves into action, luring the machine toward a narrow passage. Mara fired at exposed joints, following the devil's precise guidance. Sparks flew as the guardian staggered. It roared, a sound more mechanical than alive, and advanced toward them. The devil moved with uncanny speed, striking the guardian with energy blasts that made metal shiver and sparks fly. Each strike was precise, calculated, and devastating, but the devil did not act alone. Mara noticed that every time he attacked, he guided her movements subtly, tilting his head, adjusting his stance, pointing faintly with his hand. He was teaching her to fight, not just to survive. The guardian fell with a deafening crash, leaving a cloud of smoke and twisted metal. Mara's chest heaved. They had survived, yes, but the challenge was far from over. They moved into the main atrium, a massive chamber filled with machinery, pulsating lights, and a hum of energy. This was the core of the fortress, the enemy's command center. Mara felt a wave of fear wash over her. The machines here were more advanced, more intelligent, and far more dangerous than anything they had faced. "Stay focused," the devil said. "They rely on order, on logic. Humans rely on unpredictability. Use it, confuse them, adapt, endure." Mara glanced at her father. Tom's face was calm, but his eyes betrayed the tension. He gave Mara a small nod, a silent encouragement. She nodded back. Together they moved forward. The first wave of defenders attacked suddenly, machines dropping from above and around them. Mara and the team dodged, fired, and used the environment to their advantage. The devil moved like a phantom, striking with energy blasts, disrupting circuits, and guiding the humans' attacks with subtle gestures. Mara realized something profound. Humans were powerful not because of weapons, not because of brute force, but because of thought, courage, and unity. The devil's strength was immense, yes, but it was human adaptability that made them a team capable of facing this fortress. Hours passed in a tense dance of combat and strategy. Mara fired at joints, set traps, and moved with the team in perfect synchronization. Tom led diversions, pulling enemy attention away from the humans who breached deeper into the fortress. Every move was calculated, every shot purposeful. Finally, they reached the inner chamber, the command hub. Machines controlled by a central intelligence worked tirelessly, their lights blinking, engines humming. Mara's heart pounded. Destroying this core would cripple the enemy's forces, but it was heavily guarded. "This is it," the devil said. "Destroy the core and the rest will fall, but be precise, be human, adapt, endure, survive." Mara felt the weight of responsibility. She glanced at her father. "We can do this," she said quietly. Tom nodded. They split into teams. Mara and two others moved forward, using the shadows and traps the devil had taught them. Machines detected them immediately, firing weapons with terrifying speed. Mara dodged, rolled, and fired at weak points, following every instinct she had learned. The devil moved ahead, striking key targets with precision energy blasts. Mara watched him, trying to understand the rhythm, the pattern. She realized he was not invincible, even he could be overwhelmed. But humans could adapt. Mara took a deep breath and focused. She fired, moved, and set charges on the core. Sparks flew as the machines fought back, but her determination never wavered. Humans were not just survivors, they were fighters, thinkers, innovators. Finally, the last charge was set. Mara and the team retreated to a safe distance. Tom shouted, "Now!" The explosion rocked the chamber, sending metal and sparks flying. The core erupted in energy, circuits burning out, machines collapsing. The fortress shuddered, alarms blaring, but the humans pressed on. The enemy's control faltered and their forces became disorganized. Mara watched as machines fell one by one, confused, disoriented, and ultimately defeated. The humans had done it. Not because of superior power, not because of technology, but because of courage, adaptability, and teamwork. The devil watched silently, expression unreadable. Then he spoke. "Humans survive because they endure, they adapt, they fight with thought, courage, and heart. Today you have proven it." Mara felt a surge of pride. The fear that had gripped her since the valley attack was gone, replaced by confidence and respect for what humans could achieve. Tom clapped her on the shoulder. "We did it. We actually did it. You all did incredible." Mara looked around at the team, at the devastation they had survived, and realized something important. Humanity was strong not because of weapons or power, but because of spirit. They could endure, adapt, and prevail against impossible odds. The devil turned to leave. Mara felt a pang of sadness. He had been strange, frightening, and powerful, but he had guided them, taught them, and shown them the strength of human courage. "Will you return if we need you?" she asked quietly. The devil paused, eyes glinting in the dim light. "Perhaps. But remember this, humans do not need me to survive. You have proven today that you are capable. The next challenge you will face alone. Adapt, endure, survive." Mara nodded. She understood. Humans were not fragile, they were resilient. They were capable of surviving anything, even the most advanced, dangerous enemies. As the sun rose on the horizon, painting the sky in soft gold, the humans and the devil left the fortress. The valley below was quiet, the smoke and wreckage a testament to their struggle. Mara looked at the horizon, feeling a sense of triumph and hope. Humans could survive. Humans could fight. Humans could endure. And Mara knew deep in her heart that they would continue to thrive, no matter what the universe threw at them. The devil vanished into the distance, leaving Mara, her father, and their team to rebuild, recover, and prepare for the future. But Mara felt stronger, wiser, and more confident than ever. She had seen the power of human spirit firsthand, guided by a force beyond comprehension. And she knew this truth. No matter how advanced, how dangerous, or how impossible the enemy, humans could survive. Humans could endure. Humans could prevail. The fortress was destroyed, the enemy defeated, and the humans had emerged victorious, not because of luck but because of courage, strategy, and unity. Mara smiled faintly. The future was uncertain, yes, but humans would face it head-on with resilience, determination, and heart. And that was something no machine, no enemy could ever take away. The sun rose slowly over the valley, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Mara stood on the ridge, looking down at the wreckage of the fortress. Smoke still curled from the shattered machines, their twisted metal sprawled across the ground. The battle was over. The enemy was defeated. Yet, even in victory, Mara felt the weight of what had happened. Tom approached her, his boots crunching on the dry earth. He placed a hand on her shoulder, firm but gentle. "It's done," he said quietly. "We survived." Mara nodded, but her mind was busy replaying the events of the past hours, the chaos, the fear, the adrenaline, the courage. She had learned more in this battle than she had in all her years on the ranch. Humans were not just survivors, they were thinkers, fighters, and innovators. They adapted, endured, and overcame. That was their strength. "Are they really gone?" Mara asked, glancing at the distant horizon. She could see no signs of movement, no glimmers of machines returning. "For now," Tom said, "but we must stay vigilant. This universe is harsh. Threats will come again. What matters is that we are ready." Mara turned her gaze toward the mountains where the fortress had stood. It had been a symbol of fear, a place that seemed invincible. And yet, humans had triumphed, not through superior technology, but through strategy, courage, and unity. The lesson was clear. No matter how powerful the enemy, humanity could endure and prevail. The rest of the team began moving through the wreckage, searching for survivors and gathering resources. Mara joined them, helping where she could. Despite the exhaustion, there was a sense of purpose and pride in every action. The humans had fought together, relied on one another, and emerged victorious. That sense of unity was more powerful than any weapon. The devil appeared quietly from the shadows, standing at the edge of the field. Mara noticed the faint glow of his eyes as he surveyed the aftermath. He had not intervened unnecessarily. He had guided, taught, and protected, but the victory had been human, earned through ingenuity and courage. "You've done well," he said softly. "Not because of me, but because of yourselves. Humans survive because you think, adapt, and endure. Today you proved it once again." Mara felt a wave of gratitude and respect. "Thank you," she said simply, "for everything." The devil shook his head. "Do not thank me, I only guided. You did the work. Remember this, in the universe, survival belongs to those who act, not those who wait. And humans, you have shown me that you are worthy of survival." Tom approached, his expression thoughtful. "Will you stay?" he asked. "Help us rebuild, protect our land." The devil smiled faintly. "My work here is done. I do not belong among humans. But remember this, your strength is yours alone. The next challenge, you will face it without me. Adapt, endure, survive. That is your power." Mara felt a pang of sadness as he turned to leave. Yet she also felt pride. Humans did not need him to survive. They had proven that today. They had fought, strategized, and endured, and they had won. As the day passed, the humans began the slow work of rebuilding. The ranch, though damaged, was salvageable. Traps and defenses were reinforced, and resources gathered from the wreckage of the machines. Mara moved among the team, assisting where she could, but also observing. She noticed the pride in their eyes, the determination, the shared sense of accomplishment. "Look at this," one rancher said, holding up a small, functioning device salvaged from the enemy. "We can learn from this, make it ours, improve it." Mara nodded. That was human nature: adapt, improve, and endure. The enemy had brought destruction, yes, but also knowledge. And humans had the ability to turn even that knowledge into a tool for survival. As evening fell, Mara and Tom stood together, looking out over the valley. The sky was calm, the wind soft. For the first time since the attack, there was peace. "You were incredible today," Tom said quietly, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Not just with your skill, but with your mind. You thought, you adapted, you led when it mattered. That's what makes humans strong." Mara smiled faintly. I just followed what I learned." "From you, from the devil, from all of us together." Tom nodded. "Exactly. Humans survive not because of one person or one weapon or one power. You survive because you think, you endure, and you act together. That's why you are capable of anything." Mara felt a warmth in her chest. She realized something important. Courage was not the absence of fear. It was action in spite of fear. Humans could face impossible odds and still prevail because they did not give up. They adapted. They learned. They endured. The night fell, stars twinkling above, bright against the dark sky. Mara lay on the ridge, gazing at them, feeling a sense of calm and determination. The valley was quiet now, but she knew this was only a pause, not the end. Threats would come again. Challenges would appear. But humanity had proven today that it could survive. The devil's words echoed in her mind: adapt, endure, survive. That is your power. She smiled faintly. Yes, it was their power. Humans did not need miracles, powers, or shortcuts. They had thought, courage, and unity. That was enough. The next morning, the ranchers worked tirelessly, repairing homes, rebuilding defenses, and gathering food and supplies. Mara moved among them, lending her strength and skills where needed. She felt a deep sense of purpose. This was what humans did. They rebuilt, they endured, and they prepared for the future. Tom called a small meeting of the survivors. "We've faced something terrifying," he said, voice steady. "But we survived. We learned. And we will continue to thrive. The devil helped guide us, yes, but the real victory is ours. Humans survive because we fight, because we think, because we endure. Never forget that." Mara felt pride swell in her chest. Today they had survived. Tomorrow they would thrive. And no matter what the universe threw at them, humans would face it head-on. Weeks passed. The valley slowly returned to life. Herders moved their cattle, fields were repaired, and homes rebuilt. Mara and the other young ranchers trained, learning from the lessons of the past battle. They practiced strategy, observation, and teamwork. The devil had left, but his guidance lingered in every action, in every plan, in every heartbeat of human courage. Mara found herself standing at the edge of the ridge again, looking toward the horizon. The mountains loomed, silent and powerful. Somewhere out there, new threats would emerge. But she was ready. They were ready. Humans had faced the impossible and survived. And that was proof enough that they could endure anything. Tom joined her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You've changed," he said softly. "We've all changed, but for the better. Today we've seen what humans are capable of. Never forget it." Mara nodded. "I won't." "Humans survive. That's what we do." Tom smiled faintly. "Yes, that's what we do." As the sun rose higher, Mara felt a surge of hope. The universe was vast, full of dangers and challenges beyond imagination. But humanity's spirit was stronger. Their courage, intelligence, and unity would carry them through any storm. And Mara knew this truth with every fiber of her being. Humans could endure. Humans could adapt. Humans could survive. The valley was quiet now, but life continued. Cattle grazed, fields were tilled, and the ranchers worked together. Mara moved among them, helping, learning, and teaching. Every action, every decision was proof of human ingenuity. As night fell, she looked up at the stars once more. Somewhere out there, dangers would rise. But humans would face them. They would endure. They would survive. And Mara smiled because she knew the universe had no power over human courage and determination. Humans had fought, humans had triumphed, and humans would continue to thrive, no matter what challenges lay ahead. The devil had left, but his lesson remained. Humanity's greatest power was not technology, weapons, or magic. It was their spirit. And that spirit would carry them forward into every battle, every challenge, every horizon. Mara took a deep breath, feeling the wind on her face. The ranchers, the valley, the stars above, it was all a reminder of what they had survived and what they could endure. Humans were strong. Humans were capable. Humans were alive. And that was all that mattered.